Hi friends, welcome back to another Kindle Unlimited recommendations video. The theme is romance. Valentine's Day is coming up. To be honest, I am a romantic at heart. I do enjoy Valentine's Day. There are two kind of Kindle related announcements I wanted to make on this video that you might be interested in knowing about. First one is there currently is a Kindle Unlimited promotion on Amazon. You can get 1 month free or 2 months for $5, which Kindle Unlimited is regularly $11.99 a month. It's not specifically Kindle Unlimited related, but there is a romance themed Stuff Your Kindle Day on January 28th coming up. I do have a guide on my website of how to take advantage of the free Kindle ebooks for Stuff Your Kindle Days, but my friend Rochelle at Good Morning Dreamer also does a few more in-depth tutorials on how to actually get the books on your Kindle. You can also use a Kindle app, by the way. You don't have to have a Kindle device for this, but I will link her channel. These Stuff Your Kindle Days, if you're not aware, are just a curated list of indie authors by indie authors of free ebooks that you can download for $0. There's no sign up, there's no subscription, anything like that. So as usual, these videos are kind of a mix of my personal TBR of things that I'm interested in and that I hear a lot about, things that I know are quite popular, and some things that I have read myself that I highly recommend. For today's romance theme, these are separated out into 3 categories. We have a kind of more cozy, classic, historical romance section, the traditional contemporary romance, and then lastly, fantasy romance or romantasy. I am personally not really a romance reader. I prefer a kind of more dark, steamy romance and fantasy romance, but I do dabble in contemporary romance from time to time. I am a mood reader and a Gemini. I like to include a little bit of everything. I think you should just give everything a try once before, you decide you don't like something. So that's kind of my mentality with these book recommendation videos, starting with the historical and classic romance. So the first book on this list is a personal favorite of mine. I have chatted about it a few times. This is The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. Some people would consider this a fantasy. I think it's more of a historical fiction with magical fantasy elements. This is everything that I personally want in a romance. It's not cheesy, it's not contrived, it's just inherently romantic in and of itself. This is set in 1700s France, but it spans over multiple decades following this woman, Addie LaRue, who makes a magical deal that essentially makes her immortal, but in return, she is cursed to be forgotten by everyone that she meets. Something that I just think is the perfect combination for a book. It's very atmospheric and beautifully written. The next recommendation on this list is The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. And if you're a masochist, if you want to sob, then you need to read this book. It's absolutely heartbreaking in every way. Similarly to Addie LaRue, I think about this book all the time. It's, again, beautifully written, and as the title suggests, is the story of the Greek hero Achilles and his relationship with his childhood companion Patroclus and their kind of fated love story. But Madeline Miller just does this writing so incredibly well. Both of the characters are also just really well done, so I highly recommend this one. Okay, and next in this kind of more classical romance, we have a lot of Jane Austen. I just feel like this is the perfect setting for this type of read. If you are wanting to jump into a classic, if you're wanting something romantic, but not necessarily kind of that contemporary feel. And look, Jane Austen is not my personal favorite classical author, but a lot of these are just must reads and they are beloved by so many people for a reason. So we're starting with Sense and Sensibility. This follows 2 sisters in that typical Austen Regency England era who view their role as women and their life and their search for love very differently. One of them is the more level-headed, practical one, where the other is more of an emotional and impulsive sister, and you're just following them kind of navigating the societal expectations of the time of marriage, if love really exists, or if marriage is really just a contract of monetary value. You're just kind of following them with their various courting and crushes and outlooks on love and marriage. Next is the classic Pride and Prejudice, which is arguably Jane Austen's most famous novel. Again, not my personal favorite, but it does really give that kind of quintessential classic romance feel. Personally, one instance where I prefer the movie adaptation to the book, but this is just the story of Elizabeth Bennet, who is one of 5 daughters in this kind of more humble country type of family, following her relationship with the wealthy, aristocratic William Darcy. So they kind of have this very slow burn, very will they, won't they, tension type of prim and proper kind of Regency era romance, but there are a lot of really tender moments, interesting moments. Jane Austen is a very clever and funny writer, so there were a lot of aspects of this that I did like. Because Elizabeth is one of 5 daughters, there are some kind of subplots and like funny interactions and dialogues that you get. If you want to be a classics reader, it is one that I think everyone should get to in their life. And lastly, Jane Austen is what I have heard is her most romantic, and that is Persuasion. This is also following her oldest protagonist, who is 27 and single, which in Regency era England is essentially a lost cause. You are a spinster, you know, there's no hope for you. But it's essentially about this woman who was in love and engaged to be married, and a friend of hers persuaded her to not marry him because, you know, the typical, it wasn't a match societally. And then they meet again many years later, kind of rekindle their relationship and figure out if they can fall in love again. So apparently this one ends with a insanely romantic love letter. That just sounds amazing. Little Women is also on Kindle Unlimited, but in my opinion, that's more of a coming of age story, not necessarily a romantic love, but more about family, sisterhood, loving yourself, friendship type of book. But if you're interested in that, Little Women is on Kindle Unlimited, along with a lot of other classics. I will link, Amazon actually has an entire landing page for all of their classics, tons of them. All of the kind of quintessential classics that you can think of are actually on Kindle Unlimited. I mentioned Jane Eyre and Wuthering Heights by the Bronte sisters in my last winter Kindle Unlimited recommendations video, because to me those are just a little bit emo. Picture of Dorian Gray, like those aren't quite as uplifting and like romantic as some of these others, but are my personal favorites. So now we're getting into the contemporary romance section, and I'm going to be honest, this is not my preferred genre, and we do have a mix of things that I have read and things that I just am interested in. I have heard a lot about them. These are also kind of a mix of a more wholesome, happy contemporary romance and then like dark, spicy romance. Starting with Wild Love by Elsie Silver. This is part of the Rose Hill series, which from my understanding is like a contemporary Western romance, like cowboy, small town romance. This one also seems to focus around an older couple, which is something that I really enjoy in romance, especially contemporary. I feel like the combination of contemporary and young adult is something that I just can't do anymore. It's not for me. I especially love this cover. It is so Valentine's Day coded. Of all of them on this contemporary romance list, I think this is the one that I'm the most interested in. This is essentially about a billionaire who finds out that he is a father, and he is basically just trying to navigate new parenthood, being a billionaire, and all those kind of business ventures, and then also apparently the undying attraction he has to his best friend's sister. So you're getting a lot of those kind of billionaire, small town, best friend, sister tropes, but it seems, from what I have read and seen on reviews, it seems like it's a bit more of a mature, like healthy communication, kind of steamy romance. Please let me know down below if you have read this. I would like to know if that's true. I personally can't stand a miscommunication trope. Next, we have one that I have talked about a lot on the channel, and that is the Never After series by Emily McIntyre, so I won't get into them too much, but this is a dark, quite spicy romance series. Essentially, they are very, very loose retellings of classic fairy tales and some kind of quintessential Disney stories. They're not strict retellings, even the author says like these aren't a retelling, but there's very obvious elements and character names and things that tell you that this is very much inspired by or based off of some of these stories. She likes to pair up the villain with one of the more innocent main characters, which I really like. I love a villain. Some of these are better than others, but I personally think they are a fun time. They're steamy, they go really quick, and as someone who enjoys fairy tale and Disney stories, I really love these. The next one is one that I personally have not read, but I have been recommended it, and I just see people talk about this one like it is the creme de la creme of contemporary romance. This is Part of Your World by Abby Jimenez. It just has such high ratings and people talk so highly about it that I figured it was worth mentioning. This is the kind of quintessential successful businesswoman meets a younger, laid-back carpenter type guy who is younger than her and just kind of teaches her how to let go and love. I just heard it's very wholesome and well done. It also says it has a touch of magic in it, and the part of your world title also makes me believe that there might be some kind of magic or fairy tale inspiration for this one. And a complete 180 from a wholesome, joyful romance book is another series that I personally have read and loved, and that is the Ravenhood series. I'm gonna be so honest, I don't know what it is about this book that I loved so much. I just ate this series up. I read it over a summer and I just read it so quickly. I just thought it was so easy to read and to get into. I would recommend you don't just go into this one blind. I think this is a very toxic, very spicy, morally gray romance series. It's a reverse harem. This is also kind of a loose Robin Hood retelling. I just really enjoyed the dynamics, the tension, the characters. The first book essentially starts out as a retrospective of a 26-year-old woman, Cecilia, who is looking back on her time when she was a teenager and moving to a new town to work for her successful dad's business. Kind of falls into this group, including two men who are kind of like best friends, and she kind of falls for them both in certain ways. And then as the books go on, you're following her as she's growing up and through her relationships with them and others. And it just gets better. It gets spicier, more toxic, messier, so fun, really fast paced. I just loved them. But again, look up the content for these though, and it's very situational, I feel. You're gonna love it or hate it. So that's one that I would say proceed with caution. Honorable mentions for contemporary romance that are things that are not interesting to me and I will not be reading. I do see that they are very popular and talked about in the book sphere. If you've heard of these and wanted to give them a try, a lot of these series have a lot of books, so you'll save a lot of coin reading them on Kindle Unlimited. Starting with, for some reason, 3 hockey romance series. Not my thing, but I won't yuck your yum. That is Pucking Around by Emily Rath, which I believe is the one that's now a meme for being an insanely long for a hockey romance. I believe it's like 700 plus pages, which is insane. Apparently hockey is the sweet spot for sports romance. I've never read a sports romance. I have no interest to. However, they're very popular. Another one is Elle Kennedy's Off Campus series and the Mile High series by Liz Tom Ford. Again, all hockey romance. Also popular ones I see a lot are Anna Huang's Twisted Games series and Kings of Sin or Kings of Wrath is the first one, I believe. These both give me very like soap opera, reality TV vibes. My understanding is they're both like billionaire romance type tropes. Just wanted to mention those. Haven't read any of them, but they are popular. Lastly, we're getting into some of my personal favorites. That is the fantasy romance section. The first one is one, again, that I have recommended a lot on the channel, but I just think is some of the best fantasy romance out there. That's the Crowns of Nyaxia series by Carissa Broadbent. Essentially, this is a series that consists of multiple duologies. Right now, we're in this second duology, which I'm currently actually reading on my Kindle. Taking me a long time to get through, but I don't think it's the fault of the book. I have been going through it and I've not been reading a lot, but I absolutely love Carissa Broadbent's writing. They are very fantasy heavy, not as heavy on the romance, but it's fantasy romance. Sometimes that's just the way it is. However, the novella, Six Scorched Roses, one of my favorite novellas, books I have read. An insanely good novella, really romantic. It is a adult couple of a girl who makes a deal with a vampire to save her town and family from this disease that is like wreaking havoc on her town. It's just so darkly romantic, vampire vibes in all the best ways. Do not sleep on novellas. Incredible, absolutely read that one. Very Valentine coded again with all the roses. And another one that I have actually not heard of, I didn't even know that it was in this series, is Slaying the Vampire Conqueror, which is apparently not a novella. It says it's 2.5 in the series, and this is a standalone full-length novel, obviously a vampire romance, which I have learned that I very much enjoy, so that one's high up on my list as well. Next, we have one that I have not read, which is a fantasy romance and Greek mythology kind of hybrid. This is Blood of Hercules. Seems quite trope heavy. I am a little hesitant when books like literally just describe what they are through kind of book talk tropes, but I love mythology and dark fantasy romance so much that I'm willing to give it a try. I feel like if you like Katie Roberts, Zodiac Academy, dare I say, even Fourth Wing. You might like this one. Personally, I hated all of those books, and somehow I'm still interested in reading this, so I don't know, that says something. It's just, I'm open-minded and I like to give things a try. A dark romantasy of myth and power. Sarcastically funny dark romance. Apparently this is a retelling and a gender bend of Hercules. Not sure, but I just thought I would mention it because I think it sounds really interesting. It is a #1 bestseller on the Amazon charts. Next, we have another dark romance that I have personally read and loved. I've chatted about it on the channel. I have a iPad book journal video on this one as well that I did because I loved it so much. This is Phantasma by Kaylee Smith. This is the Wicked Games series, a paranormal romance set in a like haunted mansion, very much like Necromancer, New Orleans kind of vibes, about a young girl who essentially enters into this deadly magical trial to save her sister, and along the way she meets and falls for the typical sarcastic, dark, morally gray, tall man, which in this case, he is a phantom. So there's a lot of magical elements in this one. I just really enjoyed the story. I thought it was really fun. I would definitely recommend it. I'm looking forward to the next one. And this last one is an actual YA romantasy. This is one that I have just seen a lot and has piqued my interest. This is Kingdom of the Wicked. It says two sisters, a brutal murder and a quest for vengeance. But also obviously from the description has some historical romance vibes and inspiration as well. So it is a YA, but something that I think a lot of people generally like and is quite highly rated. So that's gonna wrap it up for this romance-inspired Kindle Unlimited book recommendation video. I hope it gave you some ideas of some things that you can pick up on Kindle Unlimited. Please leave me a little heart emoji down in the comments if you have made it this far in the video, and let me know what you are going to be reading this February. If you're gonna be avoiding romance, if you like reading a lot of romance this time of year, I would love to know, and I will catch you in the next video. Bye.